There's not really any way for me to sugarcoat this, and I'm really not going to try. There's something that I have failed to acknowledge for some time now, and it's been playing on my mind a lot over the last few weeks, especially as I've been trying to make this effort to go back, mend some of my past mistakes or past misunderstandings, and I really feel like now is the time. Sky High is not a fascist eugenics movie. It's just about kids with superpowers. The real ones in the audience will remember a specific video of mine that sort of set this channel off. Of course I'm referring to a Pokemon parody.
Look at me, I'm a video game character. Look at me, I'm going around on my day, I'm doing things you don't even do when you're a video game character.
In terms of making video essays, I started off with stuff like a video about like James Gunn getting cancelled, and I think I did like a Fallout video. But then there was a specific video I put out that happened to kind of take off. The topic being that the 2005 Disney superhero movie Sky High was actually eugenics propaganda. This really set the tone for the entire channel, but it's also been a video that I've consistently gotten a lot of mixed reactions to. Being a YouTube person, you're always in this strange sort of temporal position where anytime someone's encountering something you might have made 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and to them it's like a new thing. This is obviously completely natural. Like the date that the video came out is just this tiny little thing, and it's like when you find it, you have a take on it. But in the spirit of me going back and sort of clarifying things that I had previously talked about, I feel like this is as good an opportunity as any to look back at this stupid video I made like 6 years ago and figure out what I think about it now. I'm ready to cringe. Even though there's a fair part of me that imagines looking back at something I made in my early 20s now and sort of wants to die. I also want to make clear that I have given in to the peer pressure on this video and have applied the lapel mic properly. So if it sounds worse, that's actually your fault. To be honest, I myself have not seen this video in like 3 or 4 years, so I am also interested in how much I agree with the things I say, or the way I present the things that I'm saying.
Hey there, film fans! Fun fact, did you know
Now, I just want to say, just a beautiful look that I've got going on here. Having long hair was, I think, a large source of my power early on. Someday we'll get you back, baby. Someday I'll be willing to commit. The trouble with long hair is that you have to commit to that mid stage where it just looks like shit all the time. Also, before anything else, what an atrocious look that this video has. At the time, I think that Disney in particular was pretty strict in terms of what would get copyright claimed. So I had to do a lot more in terms of applying filters, or like switching the colors on things, like slowing up and speeding footage.
I like the stuff that you add to get past the copyright filter so you can still say what you want to say. I think that's a really good trick. I'm going to steal it.
I'm not really sure why I applied it to the whole thing. Like even the parts where I pop in, I'm purple for some reason. Now I know I've had an issue with being the wrong color in videos before. For the record, for anyone who still has that issue, I've mostly been able to get around it by just keeping my clips to below 5 seconds, and then if you have to go over, really try and make sure that's not in the clips where you have audio, because when it's just like the clip and audio, that's the kind of stuff that's going to get you copyright struck. I also love the terrible green screen effect. Now, to be clear, this wasn't even a green screen. I just had this blue tarp when I moved into the apartment I was living in Cleveland. Yeah, you can see it right here. It was just like this old scrunched up wrinkly thing, and because of that, and also because of the atrocious lighting that I had on it, it really functioned horribly in terms of being a green screen type thing. Blue screen rather, I should say. But that's the kind of maverick filmmaking that you just don't get nowadays.
What stands out about
funny sound effect.
Often accidentally or even deliberately referring to socialists and communists as liberal when those are not the same ideology.
The political stuff is really front-loaded in this video also. So I think that's the kind of people not liking this as much thing, I really understand. But I just get straight into like Jonah Goldberg and his like misunderstanding of liberalism and the left. I'm gonna say, you know, 23-year-old Jack, maybe just, you know, take your time a little bit, buddy.
The evidence by which
Oh, it's Hitler. Hitler's right. There's Hitler, right there. I think this might be the reason that the video. Oh, whoa, there's straight up just Nazi propaganda on the screen. This is actually one of the few videos I have that is still demonetized, and I think this might be the reason. Yeah, just a full-on 10-second clip of Hitler with a TV filter over it. You know, the more I watch this, the more I'm actually into the weird color filter thing that the entire video has on it. Again, it was my understanding that it was just to get around the Disney stuff, but I appear to have just put the filter over the entire video. Pretty cool, to be honest. More Hitler.
And then Sky High happened, and oh my children, I learned the truth.
Such an abrupt transition too.
Regular police never seem to show up to deal with anything.
Oh, that little image was over the filter.
Anyway, point is the world here is
Ding.
Bill gathers a gang of colourful superhero co-eds.
This is also, I think, just an early thing that a lot of people starting out will fall into, which is over-summarization. It's really hard to avoid when you're first writing YouTube video stuff, especially because it's just so common. Like a lot of the big media review critique type channels do this, where they just like just granular summarization of the thing that they're talking about, which is completely understandable because, like I say, a lot of those channels are very popular and people like to get like the full summary before they really get into the thing that's being talked about. At the same time, I think that can actually kind of obscure what you want to actually talk about.
Are those guys dead?
Ding. Yeah, that was one of the early criticisms that people had with the video, is when I was talking about Will being a stronghold and getting preferential treatment because of that, and how, well, that's just like a generic nepotism thing. That's not really about, you know, fascism or eugenics or anything like that. My point was more that we're not just talking about him getting preferential treatment because he's part of this prestigious family. It's specifically that he's getting preferential treatment because of a perceived genetic superiority he has. Sorry, I should probably say what this video is about for people that can't be bothered to actually go through and watch it. The essential argument of the video is that the society presented by the Disney superhero movie Sky High is a fascist eugenics-based society. In which people have positions in society based on a perceived genetic superiority, while people that are perceived as genetically inferior are treated as lesser. And I was specifically using the setup of Jonah Goldberg's liberal fascism because of the idea that, oh well, if we're to imagine a fascist eugenics-y society that doesn't have obvious cruelty involved, like obvious genocide taking place, how would we then say that we disagree with the fascist society? Now, it's kind of self-contradictory. Part of the problem is that fascism inherently leads to that kind of society. And certainly there is a lot of cruelty going on in the Sky High universe. I guess it kind of goes into a similar thing as Starship Troopers, which I talked about in the last video, which does try to present a fascist adjacent society that is free from obvious bigotries. But in that case, I think the point was more, well, what we're getting instead is a ridiculous fantasy world. Which is the only world in which that type of society could actually function.
I believe the preferred term is hero support.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I think that's worth highlighting. The fact that sidekick is talked about as like a slur in this world, and yet everyone's just openly calling people sidekicks. I'm just saying, I'm agreeing with 23-year-old Jack here. It's pretty fucked up when you really think about it. My favorite trend of YouTube videos isn't it fucked up when you think about the media as if it was real genre? Oh, it was only since watching this that I watched The Expanse and then found out that that was the guy that was fucking Holden from The Expanse playing War and Peace. Just iconic, just the most iconic role I've ever seen. Not to mention, of course, Will Stronghold's friend being Cousin Greg, which is really blowing my mind.
It's tough, man. T-U-P-H.
Did they say that they were going to do a reboot of Sky High at any point? Because honestly, I would still love to see it.
The stinky bus driver.
Fart noises, need to bring those back.
I guess I'll take a break to broadly go over the history of eugenics.
Go for it, buddy. I will say, like, I've had a certain percentage of people that honestly prefer how my videos used to be, and I think there was a certain amount of unself-aware confidence that I had to just be like, yeah, okay, that's me talking about Sky High. I'm going to talk about eugenics for a while now. And just like, without needing to lampshade it or signpost it in any way, just like, yeah, just go straight into it. Which honestly, like, yeah, I think in some ways, it's the better way to do things, honestly. When you're already delving into this particular genre of like political media analysis, just go all the way, right? None of this namby-pamby, oh, let me make a bunch of jokes so that I can make it seem ironic that I'm doing this when I am actually doing it.
Hitler, and therefore that it's specific.
Hey, it's Hitler again. Hey, it's Nazi propaganda again. The confidence of this man.
Native Americans were also in the chopping block, with thousands being unceremoniously sterilized.
Just covering all the heady topics of the day with this video.
You need only look to the reaction to a revelation that a Star Wars Jedi's prowess might not be tied to genetic heritage to see how attached the West is to eugenic storytelling.
This particular comparison aged in a very interesting way. And obviously I knew that from the moment I included it, like half of the video's comments would be just people complaining about that movie. But I did not realize that then the following movie would try it so desperately to be like, no, eugenics is a thing in this universe, guys. She has the midichlorians because she's Palpatine's fucking daughter. Oh my god, that movie was so fucking stupid. I truly don't care that much about Star Wars, but I'm still annoyed about that fucking movie. I genuinely just thought it was cool to have this inversion of Episode 5, where it's like, oh, actually, you're the descendant of this like big important guy, to then have the opposite thing where it turns out she isn't. Like, oh, I thought that was a cool idea, and then Palpatine's behind it all. Somehow Palpatine's return. I think it leads into an interesting thing with storytelling where people feel like they need objective reasons for things to be the case, which in a way that doesn't really correlate with reality. Like the idea that this character can't be stronger unless they're given the context of some bloodline that they're connected to that might have given them some kind of advantage. Plenty of people, to be clear, not from a prestigious bloodline that have happened to be incredibly skilled or talented in different areas. But, you know, in the case of something like a magical force powers, feeling like it needs to be connected to something objective or else it no longer makes sense, which... not a discussion I want to get into ever in my life. Love the Psychonauts music in the background here. Yeah, so one of the things I was going to get into is how people are saying this is commentary on that kind of society because, you know, it's from the perspective of the people that are seen as lesser. And is sort of sympathetic to them, and therefore at the end of the movie you're supposed to have almost an anti-fascist or anti-eugenics kind of opinion, which is interesting because a lot of those same people that will make this point will also deny that the film is this weird eugenicsy society in the first place. But for the people that do, the point that I think I made a few times in the video is that the hero supports aren't just seen in this really sympathetic way. They are basically treated as a punchline for a lot of the story. Like in the case of Sideboy, whatever his fucking name is. Like a lot of the characters are just meant to be pathetic. I think I saw this guy in Fargo recently. They honestly got a great cast for this movie. All American Boy, that's what it's called. What'd I say?
Like the tuna fish sandwich.
I also maintain that. I don't know what that sandwich is.
What the fuck is this? Will admits to his
Yeah, this is another case of me trying to be very elegant with getting around content block. Yeah, I was just trying to be real subtle about it and make sure it doesn't get in the way of your viewing experience. So I hope you appreciate that.
Dad pulls back and blames Sonic.
This hopefully highlights just how maddeningly difficult it was to not get your reviews struck at this time. Yeah, YouTube sucks.
He and Will's mother admit to one another how disappointed they are by this development and briefly consider conversion therapy.
I think this is also probably one of the bits of confusion. Like, to be clear, when I'm saying dropping Will in a vat of toxic acid is basically conversion therapy in this universe. Like, on the one level, true. But also, you know, I'm aware that it's not that serious, right? Like, there's a lot of people that just sort of criticize the video of being like, well, it's not that deep. And it's like, obviously, it's a fucking Disney movie. Like, it's a fucking silly Disney superhero movie, right? Like, clearly you're not meant to think of that as serious as conversion therapy. It's just sort of, when you think about it, that's effectively what we're talking about here. The idea that I can simultaneously... oh my god, ice cream. The idea that it's not like the serious commentary and the jokier elements of the video are these two separate weird things that clash. It's the same thing, kind of. At the end of the day, like I say, I think there's certain audiences that this video is just not going to appeal to, and I completely understand that. This clip, now you'll notice that not only is it the weird sort of like shrunk down thing, not only is it filtered, but in fact double filtered and with the content ID block text over it. Because this clip specifically got my video blocked like a dozen times. Like, I was honestly having a mental breakdown at this point of trying to get this video published. And at the time I didn't even have to do deadlines, so clearly something was going deeply wrong. I think nowadays I probably would have just like sped up the footage or something, or like pitch shifted it, and sometimes like the audio will be the thing that leads to the block, and that's one way that you can get around it. At least I've found I can get around it.
In the lunch.
Yeah, this is kind of the thing, because a lot of people have watched the video and then they've said, well, it's not that deep. This is actually just a story about jocks versus nerds, essentially. You know, it turns out that Will has a bit more talent than he previously was assumed to have, and this kind of creates this separation. Now, on the one hand, you can have a simpler, straightforward reading of the film, and that's fine. This isn't the one correct way to interpret this, as per my last video on this subject. It's just that at the same time, maybe you can apply that logic to the kind of society that I'm talking about. And maybe that could actually give you something to think about in terms of how this sort of ideology tends to fester in society. You know, the idea of the superior and the inferior through these very specific genetic frameworks. Yeah, you can maybe say there is like a point of comparison. You don't need to suddenly be like, oh, being a jock is like being a fascist. I don't even know do we still do like the jocks and nerds thing? I'm very out of touch. But the point being that you can have the simpler reading, but then take something like this and then maybe think about how it could apply in these more boiled down contexts. Or not, who fucking cares, it's a YouTube video.
The thing here is that the film still feels the need to justify that not just narratively, but in universe.
Now, I will say, like, thinking about that, I don't think that's entirely fair, because I do think for the most part that was just a way to provide some additional commentary in the film. You know, by putting Will, the main character, in a different position later in the film, it just allows him to have a sort of different perspective, and then that to kind of give you something else to think about. Also, to be clear, and I think I even say this in the video, and this, honestly, I feel like I've said it a million times, this is not about what the creators of the media deliberately put into the thing. Again, I think that this is very consciously like a commentary on that kind of society, to be honest. But I don't think it was meant to be negative in any kind of way. I think it was supposed to be this very positive, like, oh, everyone can make a difference type of story. Even if it was using some of those tropes, at no point am I saying, oh, the people that made Sky High, yeah, those are fascists. Those are fascists right there, and they disgust me.
Anyway, away from the sidetrack, Will gets home, elated by these developments.
Summary.
Warren gets trapped in a wind vortex, and seeing his rival slowly dying from being starved of oxygen in his brain...
Which frankly is still an extremely anime way to implement super fast abilities as a way for someone to overpower someone else. More inventive than pretty much any Flash media that has been released, unless there's been a piece of Flash media that has done that. And if so, I'm stupid and wrong.
At a certain point, Sky High just sort of gives in to its pseudo-fascist setup.
Sometimes there are words that you read a lot, but you know, you don't make YouTube videos that are potentially going to get seen by hundreds of thousands of people where you've said the word, and so you just for the first time say the word, and it turns out that that's not how the word is pronounced.
Pseudo. Stress on the first syllable, silent P. Pseudo.
And you might say, Jack, why would you ever think that it was pronounced pseudo and not pseudo? And look, honestly, make YouTube videos. Make YouTube videos and say a million different words. And then just, you know what? Never have a word that you happen to stumble upon that you don't know the correct pronunciation of. And assume that you do know how to pronounce it.
She storms out, much to Will's chagrin, with him finally...
See, chagrin. No one ever mentions the fact that I pronounce chagrin correctly, right? No one ever thinks about the many words. You say 1,000 different silly words correctly, and no one says a thing, but you say pseudo once, and then you're the pseudo guy. Shoe tucker. The worst part of the shoe tucker thing is I looked it up, and I read the thing that was like, oh yeah, a lot of people think it's pronounced Shao Tucker, but that's actually a misconception. So I was like, oh okay, I know how to say it correctly now, and then I just went the other way with it. I still ship it.
Babies.
That poor baby, truly, who I guess now is like 20? Yeah, can someone get in touch with these 20-year-old babies that were in Sky High? Get their thoughts on the eugenics society that they were a part of. Also using that classic Wii Shop music that every single YouTube video essay used for about 5 years.
A perfectly identified opportunity for a bestiality joke.
With those cute little legs.
Cousin Greg. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the sidekicks, sorry, hero supports, do help, but ultimately the day is saved thanks to a guy who is in fact the Ubermensch, which I think contributes to my point. I don't know. Maybe this video hasn't aged that badly, actually. I was really expecting me to hate it more, but it's not that bad, honestly. Yeah, like that's the main thing. For the people that did take the premise of this video seriously and weren't just like, oh, it's not that deep. The claim being that the film is actually commentary on this society and why it's bad. When I feel like the point that you kind of come away with is, well, this kind of society isn't nice. This kind of society is mean, but fundamentally, the characters at the end are rewarded because it turns out that they're actually seen as more useful than they first appeared. You know, they aren't actually genetically inferior. It's not really so much a critique of this genetic hierarchy-based society as it is saying, oh, these particular individuals are actually of a higher grade than we once believed. Which I do think holds true, basically. I need to piss so fucking bad. Yeah, I think it just comes back to this idea of, oh, I'm saying this media is problematic and that's the whole purpose of the video. And it's just, I've really steered away from that when I'm talking about these very esoteric analysis of media type things. Like I've done videos where I'll actually say like, oh, I think this thing was problematic, like the Dharma Show, you know, like to make this piece of media, this very voyeuristic look at a thing, specifically in a way that was against the consent of the people that were involved in the thing that happened. I also did a video about Pam and Tommy, which covers similar ground. You know, I do think that there's things to talk about there, but when I'm talking about fucking Sky High or Cars 2, the purpose is not, hey everyone, this thing is evil because it's fascist. You know, it's more just an avenue to talk about how certain ideas can become acceptable or be framed in a way that they seem permissible, in a way that's silly and harkens back to some nostalgic media from your youth, rather than seeming like this very dour, depressing discussion, which often it can be when you're talking about Hitler, which I seem to talk about Hitler a lot.
Is an anime called My Hero.
Now, to be clear, this was just because when I was making this video, I was watching My Hero Academia at the time, and I was really, really into it. Honestly, from the year following me making this video to now, I have not consumed any My Hero Academia media, so I can't really say that much as to whether it's sort of gone worse in terms of these ideas. I will say that at one point I actually followed up on talking about this in my Cars video, specifically talking about how My Hero Academia does function as a critique of a eugenics-based society, more so than something like Sky High. But again, I haven't read or watched much of that thing since I made this video, so my conclusions here are quite limited. Okay, yeah. Honestly, that video didn't age nearly as badly as I thought it would. Yeah, I think there's a lot of presentation things that would be different now, which is kind of obvious because I've literally made, I think, like 100 videos since I made that one, and that was maybe my fourth or fifth video that I'd ever made, like in terms of a video essay. Yeah, I guess it's more just a comment on how over the years, through the process of making stuff, you're going to have certain changes you might make stylistically, which is kind of natural. There's definitely elements of that video that make me cringe now, but you know, I try to be as clear as possible with the parameters of what I was talking about in that video, and I think it still comes across. So yeah. Fuck Jack Saint. Jack Saint's a piece of shit and he's trying to cancel my beloved children's media. Not to say that I'm gonna jump straight back to making another big political analysis of a nostalgic kids media thing. I think the ship has sailed for me when it comes to that type of content, and that's definitely not foreshadowing for the next thing that's coming out on my channel. It actually definitely isn't, but it's definitely not foreshadowing for something that might come out soon on the channel. And that perhaps this video was a quick cover-up because I wasn't done making it by the time it was April Fool's. But thank you for watching anyway. I hope you enjoyed this silly little look back, which I decided to do. For those of you that have been here since a Pokemon parody, thank you for sticking with me. Send me a tip or sign up on the Patreon. You can be one of the patrons that's scrolling by now. Thank you for watching. I'm gonna piss myself. And I apologize for being me.